What does merit mean in a society that is as unequal as ours? Let's introduce our panel this evening. We're joined by Manish Tiwari, Member of Parliament and spokesperson for the Congress Party. We're also joined from the Samajwadi Party by Kamal Farooqi. The Samajwadi Party, of course, is interestingly the only party that has expressed an opposition to this proposal to bring a constitutional amendment bill in that will, in a sense, uphold quotas in promotions. With us in the studio, TSR Subramanian, former Cabinet Secretary of India. Also with us in the studio, Dalit activist and convener of the National Campaign on Dalit Human Rights is Paul Divakar. Also with us in the studio, we have today the story of a self-made Dalit entrepreneur whose turnover of his company is today 127 crore rupees. Hari Kishan Pipal from Agra is joining this debate tonight. And joining us from Mumbai is well-known author and commentator, former CEO of Procter & Gamble, Gurcharan Das. Manish, if I may start with you, you spend most of your evenings battling parties from the opposition. You and the BJP agree on almost nothing. To me, it seems quite interesting that this is one thing on which there is near unanimity among political parties, suggesting, in a sense, the highest degree of political expediency and vote bank calculation.
Well, I think, Barkha, that the first part of your statement is partly correct because what we are supposed to do by the day in Parliament, we unfortunately end up doing by night in television studios. But be that as it may, I would beg to disagree with the second part of your statement with regard to political expediency. And the reason why I say that is because if I rewind my life by 3 decades and go back to the late 80s or the early 90s, you know, I was also a very passionate meritorian at that point in time. And then you had the great agitations pro and anti the Mandal movement. I think maybe, you know, you possibly were in college at that point in time, or may have just graduated.
We're the same vintage, yes. Yeah.
like most of us. But then, you know, when the Indra Sahni judgment came of the Supreme Court, I think the debate got settled to quite an extent. And most of us who were on the other side of the debate at that point in time also saw the rationale in the Supreme Court judgment that, you know, there cannot be equality among unequals. So therefore, there is a very strong case for reservation for socially and educationally backward classes, you know, both in education and jobs. And I think our founding fathers of the Constitution were extremely far-sighted, you know, when they introduced those provisions of Article 16 in the Constitution.
But Manish,
with regard to whether they should.
Manish.
Okay, I'll hold my horses and.
Yes, you hold your horses because you referred to the Indra Sahni judgment, but the Indra Sahni judgment actually spoke about a 5-year cap. It said that in 1992, it said within 5 years, actually, you should stop having quotas for promotions. In the meantime, we, of course, had a constitutional amendment bill brought in. And since then, we've seen this issue addressed in the court again and again and again. Now, the final word of the Supreme Court has been this, that by all means, if states want to have quotas and promotions, go ahead. But the states have to fulfill certain conditions. Among those conditions is that you have to prove that a Dalit, for example, is still backward despite getting a job, despite getting the benefits of the job. You also have to prove that getting that promotion through a quota does not vitiate the work atmosphere. Now, these are conditions, the second especially, that might be impossible actually to prove. Mr. Subramanian, because you can never empirically prove whether a work atmosphere is being vitiated or not, which is why we've seen in Uttar Pradesh that Mayawati's policy of consequential promotions actually got overturned. Now, where do you weigh in? Because let me give you the other side of the debate. The other side of the debate is that we're a country where class and caste coincide. We're a country where merit is a misnomer. Because if you look at how many high positions in government jobs or private sectors are in fact held by Dalits or scheduled tribes, the number is abysmally low. That makes us not an equal society.
Barkha, there are many dimensions as we have quickly referred to here.
Yeah.
We should not confuse between entry level and promotions. At entry level, I think benefits are to be given. The deprivation of centuries has to be corrected. It has to be a sustained policy, not just to have quotas in my view, but also to help in so many other ways in preparing them to come in and compete, give them the opportunity.
So entry level in government jobs you would support?
No, I think it is essential.
You think it's essential?
I think it's essential. But I think the quota is a totally different dimension, because once the entry takes place, they merge into the mainstream of civil servants.
Yes.
You cannot then divide civil servants into Dalits and Sikhs and Chettiars and Vaniyars. You cannot do all that at that point of time. There are only two criteria which are relevant. One is seniority, the other is merit. Merit is a very difficult one to do, but we cannot clearly throw the baby with the bathwater and say merit is no consideration at all.
So once you are in, you are a civil servant.
Once you are in, I see the Supreme Court has not yet gone into the issue of the structure of the Constitution and also the basic structure of equality, because you are now cutting into equality among civil servants. Earlier, you were among castes, etc. One last point to start with. I think the benefit that you give to one community, which should be given in so many ways that is possible, you also have to weigh the adverse impact it will have our institutions and governments, medium and long term.
Yeah.
In my view, you are going to levy a massive tax on the people of India forever. So if you want to help, do help in so many other ways. Do not treat it as a today's political issue for 2014 elections.
Exactly.
Look at it in a larger perspective.
Exactly. Manish, here's my cynical question to you briefly before we move on to the others, and that question is this: that entry level quotas is one thing, but surely the aim is in the end to assimilate, to enable every caste that has lived on the margins historically.
India's #1 news app just got even better. Download NDTV's new app. Fully optimized for retina display, full screen view, faster response time, and Sudoku. NDTV's new iPad app. Download now.